Future Generations, 30 years ago, had as its first project creating the huge national park coming off of Mount Everest on the Chinese side in the Tibet Autonomous Region. That project brought huge excitement to the government and to the people of Tibet because they realized in a new way that conservation and development could work hand in hand. So as the conservation work for Mount Everest grew, we started Tibet-wide wildlife protection. And these are the laws that were passed under the leadership of Future Generations for Tibet-wide wildlife conservation, so that now today, all species of wild animals, once endangered, are growing in Tibet. We decided it was important to document what was happening in conservation. And so the first book on Tibetan ecology was written by Future Generations, by our professor, Robert Fleming, in partnership with a leading Tibet scholar, Dorji Tsering, and a leading Chinese forester, Liu Wulin. And this book shows the magnificence of the Tibet environment through its many, many different ecosystems. Tibet is a rich and very biodiverse environment. That book was published in English. Jimmy Carter wrote the foreword, and then the book was published in Tibetan. And this was distributed across the schools of Tibet, so the Tibetan school children. And then the same book was published in Chinese and distributed to senior leaders across China. And as they learned about what was happening in Tibet, all the amazing discoveries of the rich environment, they then started to apply Chinese financial resources, which today have now gone over $2 billion to protecting the environment in Tibet. And very importantly, the Chinese scientific leadership is continuing to study the area. And it's very exciting that this last 2 months, a survey team has been working in one of the protected areas we initiated. This protected area is where the Brahmaputra River, which is called Tsangpo in Tibetan, leaves the Himalaya mountains and bursts through a crack in the Himalaya and goes on down to India. That crack in the Himalaya is the world's deepest gorge. It's 4 times deeper than the Grand Canyon, 21,000 feet from the top to the bottom. And as the river bursts through the crack of the Himalaya mountains in the Brahmaputra Tsangpo Gorge, there's a very special niche of ecological systems still being preserved, especially trees. And so this summer, the Chinese scientists were able to document that in this pocket where Future Generations led in creating the giant cypress nature reserve, this giant cypress is only found in this one part of the world, with huge trees. And what we thought were tall trees, now we know that they are giant trees. This past summer, there was identified one of the giant cypresses that's 335 feet tall. It is taller than a football field is long. And this is now identified as the second tallest tree in the world. It makes sort of an interesting poetic sense to have the second tallest tree along with the tallest mountains of the Himalaya, along with this mighty river of the Brahmaputra as it floods through the Himalaya mountains and goes on down into India. But this nature preserve of the giant cypress is protected because Future Generations initiated a region-wide conservation project. When we began, the Chinese army was cutting timber through this region, and 350 trucks a day were taking the timber out for the economic growth of China. But what Future Generations initiated in partnership with the government, in partnership with Chinese scientists, was setting up a sustainable forestry management plan through the Four Great Rivers area. And this sustainable management plan has been running now for 2 decades. And the forest timbers that were being randomly and rampantly cut, all that is, those forests are now regrowing. I want you to watch the film that follows, that describes how we created the Four Great Rivers Nature Reserve, especially how we protected this gigantic forest resource. It's protected. It's being sustainably managed. So please watch the Four Great Rivers Nature Preserve video that follows.